Throughout human history, one thing has been a constant: crime. There are many types of crimes committed and many types of investigators who look into them. Criminals get very creative to stay ahead of the law. Find out crime doesn't pay. Join Jason Nasty as he dissects various crimes, mysteries, and disappearances.
Crime Maze.
Hello, my friends. Thank you for, hopefully you watched that cool intro done by my good friend, Ellie. Thank you, Ellie, for that again. Of course, my name's Jason, and I go by ESTEY'S Crime Maze. That's right. See on the screen there. Thank you for being with me, everyone. Hopefully we'll get some live people again on this live. Get you in the chat. And I'll read your comments and questions. I always appreciate it. I really do. I appreciate the engagement. We're getting close to 1,000 subscribers, my friends. Yes, yes. And then the community, all these Idaho 4 true crime junkie creators, and I respect each and every one of you. You may not be a creator, but I respect you. I respect all of you that choose to leave comments or questions to myself and other creators. But to the creators out there, they're going to have no excuse. When I get to 1,000 subs, they can't say, oh, Jason doesn't even have 1,000 subs. I'm not even going to bother to do an interview, even though I'm reaching out to these creators, my friends, each and every one of them, to ask respectfully or tell them I would like to collaborate with some of them. I would like to have them either on my show, some of them at least, and or I would like to be on their show. Birdie, for example, you know, Birdie's got a huge platform. He does some excellent, sublime work at times. He's got over 1,000 people that come on his live. Well, several months ago, probably good 4 or 5 months ago now, at least, but he, about 3 times, he said that we would do an interview together. I'd be on his platform as a guest, because I reached out to him, and then he backed out each time, my friend, and he never told me why. Was he thinking at the time I was going to be too controversial? He knows damn well, and I reminded him, dude, you're going to get a lot of people watching our interview. And a lot of people are going to agree with my theory. Not everyone, but a lot of people. And I'm going to give credit to Birdie because he connected the dots, my friends, many months ago that, you know, the students are most likely alive. They're in a WITSEC program. But today, everyone, we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I'm going to expose a lot of people that support this creator, and his name is Jay Embry, Pavarotti. But some people see through this guy, thankfully. I used to fully support Jay Embry. I used to believe in the nonsense that he was spouting, a lot of nonsense. I believed him for the first, I don't know, year when I was listening to some of his videos, not all of his videos, but some of them. But then I started to use, again, reason, logic, common sense. When you think critically of this case, my friends, and you realize, and you say to yourself, oh my God, wait a sec. Like ESTEY'S Crime Maze says, the United States under USC Code 31, they can legally stage a violent event. And then you find out, my friends, even the red on the foundation of the house, the so-called blood, everybody knows, even devil's advocates had to admit this, that it wouldn't still be red days later, my friends. Even Ellie said, I think it's in the, about 18 hours later, that blood, the red, is going to turn to like a darkish brown or black. And yet it was red the whole time, my friends. And why wouldn't forensics wash this up? You see, these are the many things that Jay Embry apparently does not want to address, everyone. He seemingly wants to convince you that, for example, the blood is actual blood, the red. It's not paint. Well, of course it's paint. It's not real blood for victims, in my opinion, my friends. By the way, in this live, everyone, I want a quick disclaimer to tell you that, of course, these are my opinions only. Everything's alleged, right? I'm not blaming anybody for certainly not committing a crime. And this is for entertainment purposes only. And I'm giving you my thoughts and feelings on the case, my friends, but a lot of this I can back up with facts. I really believe that. So thank you for being here again, everyone. Exus Green, I believe, or sorry, Lex Green 8 says they need to hear your perspective. Thank you, Lex Green. I appreciate that. Yeah, so you get this huge creator. And again, I've gone after this boy, my friends, or this guy, this man. He calls himself Jay Embry, that's his real name, and he calls himself Pavarotti or Pav. It's crazy, man. Anyway, yeah, Lex Green says fake or rust from the pipes, probably fake as fuck. Exactly. It's like I interviewed Ellie again on the Idaho 4K several days ago, my friends. I hope you'll check out her interview. I think we knocked it out of the park, especially Ellie. She did an amazing job again, everyone. And hopefully I contributed positively as well. But we showed everyone this whole thing, and it's so fake, just like Lex Green said, and Ellie said the same thing, everyone. When you look at this case critically, it's so fake, man. And the feds, my friends, whoever is in charge of faking this violent event, and partly it's the U.S. Marshals probably, along with other federal agencies, particularly FBI. But I always give credit to the U.S. Marshals, so they never have to be mad at me, my friends. They protected those 4 students. That's their job, everybody, right? Again, you're not going to hear this from Jay Embry. You're going to hear the opposite. He doesn't even want to talk about the U.S. Marshals, apparently, going into the house, moving the so-called victims' boxes out. By the way, like Bertie said, my friends, Bertie's lived in a small town. I'll move the microphone closer. Is this better, my friends? Can you hear me clearer? I hope so. Lex Green, how's my volume as my mouth gets a little closer to the microphone? Let me know, please. It's like Bertie said. Bertie lives in a small town. He says, I've never seen U.S. Marshals. Because I sort of addressed this with Bertie on a phone call, I believe. He says, I've never seen U.S. Marshals moving victims' boxes, things out. He says it's always families, right? Or you hire a cleaning company. The family does, my friends. But we didn't see that in this case, the Idaho 4, right? You saw U.S. Marshals. And again, my friends, Jay Embry, if he really was telling the truth of this case, if he really wanted you to know the truth of the Idaho 4, what really happened in those dark hours or the hours under cover of darkness 2022, he should be addressing this, shouldn't he, everyone? He should be telling you that the boxes says North American Relocation Services. Bertie was the first one to find this out, everyone. I don't know if it was one of his researchers helped him. And then Bertie, I believe on his own, said to himself, well, North American Relocation Services, a lot of people, that sounds strange, right? I'm sure he was saying that to himself. Then the company went down in about 2 or 3 days, my friends, non-existent. You couldn't find it afterwards. Isn't that strange too, right? And then to top it off, Bertie was correct. He said, I wonder if they work with the feds. And guess what, my friends? North American Relocation Services, they had a Schedule 48. The parent company is called SIRVA, SIRVA. And yes, they move cooling, refrigerators, all kinds of shit. They move money. They do it all, my friends. And the Schedule 48 allows the U.S. Marshals, the feds, to move valuable government assets, my friends. Yes, think like a confidential informant that most of us believe was living most likely at 1122 King Road, right? Probably one of the girls spoke too much, maybe some loose lips. Their cover was blown. So what's the next step, everyone? Jay Embry doesn't tell you this. The next step is that the U.S. Marshals would go in and extract them. They would do an extraction operation, my friends. And a lot of this would have been pre-planned. Why? Because even Steve G, who I normally don't believe, my friends, apparently Jay Embry believes everything Steve G says. As Bertie says, come on, my friend, Steve G looks like a Fed and he acts like a Fed. In my opinion, that's totally correct. You can't believe half the things that come out of Steve G's mouth. He's probably totally controlled at this point, my friends, for the longest time, right from the get-go, probably by the FBI, right? By the feds. He's told to put that emotionally charged narrative because he's got to sell it, my friends. He's got to sell you the story to the public of this nonsense that Kaylee was stabbed to death, right? And he even said her nose was busted, and going on about her face mutilated, right? All this horse shit. And you know what? You know what Steve G. Sorry, you know what Jay Embry did, by the way, my friends. Jay Embry ran along with Steve G's comments. He again, Jay Embry, my friends, we got to ask the hard questions and think critically here. This guy puts out so much outlandish, outrageous conspiracy theories, things he can never back up, my friends. And we're going to get into some of the alternative perp nonsense that he puts out. In my opinion, it's total garbage, total nonsense. We don't have to believe it, my friends, and nor should you, okay? Because there's no evidence to support it. We're going to get in that moment. But one of the things that I thought, again, was outrageous, and again, my friends, keep in mind, as I've always said, the FBI, the feds, maybe even CIA, but particularly FBI in this case, I believe, everyone, you know that they are going to put out misinformation and disinformation agents covering the Idaho 4 case, right? They're going to put out misinformation, disinformation agents to try to distract you and convince you that an atrocity took place, which is just the FBI CIA narrative, my friends, right? They're going to put out these creators that never want to tell you, but wait a second, if there was an atrocity, why were there no body bags, right? Come on, you're going to see body bags or a white sheet over victims of a quadruple homicide. That's a fact, my friends, okay? That's a fact, right? I've talked to EMEs. They're going to tell you the same thing. Emergency personnel, my friends, and people, you know, and so, and the other thing, as I've always said, my friends, in high profile cases, I've been saying for the last couple of years, where's the blood, right? Where is the raw leaked crime scene photos? Where are the leaked autopsy photos? Now, I'm sure many of you are saying, well, Jason, they just released the bloody photos, right? 3,000 apparently were leaked by the Global Mail, which came from Moscow Police Department 3 years after the fact, right? For some reason now, they're so desperate, I believe, the feds, my friends, to hoodwink you that they're finally releasing these bloody photos. But guess what? Ellie and I show you, my friends, it means largely nothing. It's just part of the staged violent event, the staged crime scene. The first thing you're going to do as a federal investigator in charge of this case, my friends, in the U.S. Marshals, the people that are read in, right? The first thing you're going to do, because you're staging a violent event, if my theory is correct, which I believe it is, you're going to, as Ellie said, you're going to take photos. You're going to take, put some blood here, blood there, right? You got to make it look like, if you ever release these photos, that the naive public are going to just buy into it. See, oh, the students were stabbed to death. They released these bloody photos. It's nonsense, my friends. Please don't believe it. Please don't believe it, my friends. I'll let you make up your own minds. But again, everyone, Jay Embry, he just runs with it. And he thinks that the blood is real, the photos. He never wants to tell you, my friends. He will never, ever bring it up. This is why he won't interview me, my friends, I believe. Okay, I've challenged him to an interview, and I've asked respectfully, interview me, Jay Embry. I'm almost at 1,000 subs, not quite there yet. And yet, Jay Embry, my friends, he knows two things are going to happen at least if he interviews me. Number one, I'm going to get a lot more subscribers, obviously, very quickly. He doesn't want that because he doesn't want my message out, I don't believe, my friends. And he thinks he knows I'm going to destroy his narrative. He knows his massive audience are going to realize the truth, my friends, in my opinion, that they've been hoodwinked largely by Jay Embry Pavarotti. It's that simple, everyone. A lot of his audience, because they're going to agree with me, they're going to connect the dots themselves and say, yeah, I think ESTEY'S crime maze makes a lot of sense. There's no evidence really that a violent event even took place, an atrocity like Jay Embry keeps saying, and all these other creators, right? Just like local law enforcement's trying to convince you that this quadruple homicide happened. Bullshit. Where are the leaked autopsy photos, my friends? Where is the leaked autopsy photos? Again, almost every high profile case, you're going to get leaked autopsy photos. Look no further than the OJ case, my friends. And you better believe mainstream media would have got most likely leaked crime scene autopsy photos. And even if somehow they do release autopsy photos, my friends, you can be guaranteed, as Ellie, has a sister that's a professional makeup artist, they'll find a way to fake that, fudge that nonsense too. But I don't think they're gonna. I think they probably didn't go that far to actually fake autopsy photos, but you never know. I wouldn't put it past them. But we haven't seen it so far, my friends, right? And the public deserves this. If a quadruple homicide happened, we deserve, real truth and transparency, don't we, my friends? Because a lot of you U.S. taxpayers, all of you U.S. taxpayers out there, you're paying for money, I believe, and you're wasted. Your money's being wasted on a total fucking scam right now. Steve G's made what, $200,000 maybe or more on the back of so-called his daughter's death. Well, what if his daughter wasn't even dead? Even isn't that worse, my friends? His daughter's alive. Come on, and Maddie's alive. This is the great news, everyone. This should be celebrated. This theory, right? Xander Canoodle's alive, in my opinion, as well, and Ethan Chapman. It's that simple. There's nobody that was able to take them out. Yes, their lives were probably in danger, and that's why the U.S. Marshals did what they call an extraction removal operation, my friends. There's no question in my mind, in my opinion. Allie Jones, 1727, thank you for your comment. She says, I'm UK case, not heard of much, showed 3 mates the video of cops going in-house that morning, asked them to guess what crime had happened there. All in their 50s, one a nurse, thought maybe a fight. Interesting. That's in the UK. 3 mates, a video. Are you talking about the Idaho 4? I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. Thank you. Allie Jones 1727 also says, God smacked when I said what and said absolutely not. Lex Green now is giving me a negative comment. She says he's weak. Oh, you're talking about Jay Embry. I love it. He's weak behind them weirdo glasses. Exactly. It's a total Fed move, man. Come on, folks. Jay Embry in his dark shades, never showing his pupils except one time. One time. It's again, it's not just. I think my friends, it goes a lot deeper than necessarily his shtick. And even if it was just a shtick, like Lex Green 8 says, I think it's weak. I agree with you, Lex Green. It's weak. But, to each their own. Some people, I think they just follow Jay Embry mostly because they like his entertainment, and that's fine. But I'm just trying to tell the truth here, everyone, and give you my opinions. We got to be very careful with somebody like a Jay Embry, a Pavarotti, who's done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos on the Idaho 4. He's literally doing like 1 or 2 Idaho videos a day, my friends. Who does that? And that's okay, except I have a real issue when, for the longest time, my friends, I kept saying Jay Embry, in my opinion, should be doing interviews. You do hundreds and hundreds of videos, and all you did was a half-ass interview with A.R. Hayes, a Convict's Thoughts. And I like A.R. Hayes at times. He's an okay guy, but the interview was not, come on. And that's all that Jay Embry did? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So now recently, my friends, Jay Embry, even though I'm a smaller channel by far, he knows that my message is getting out. He knows I bring this up on Devil's Advocate show when I was a regular guest at times. And I was saying, again, Jay Embry should be doing interviews. Interview me, Jay Embry. And you know what this guy does? What a piece of work. Now he's doing one-on-one interviews finally with Lana, a woman, not a man. He won't dare especially be interviewed by a man who's got opposite viewpoints, showing you the real big truth of this case, that those students are most likely in a witness protection, my friends, and they certainly weren't stabbed to death, okay? This was a staged crime scene, and I can show you the evidence of it, my friends. Okay, I've just spoken a little bit about it today. I'm going to do more in future videos. And Ellie and I, please check out our interview, my friends, with Ellie and I. We laid it out. We laid out the overwhelming circumstantial evidence that this was most likely a staged violent event. The U.S. Marshals, therefore, they extracted those students from the get-go, and everything else is a cover-up, my friends. To cover up that the students are alive, not to cover up that they're dead.
And again, this is great news. I mean, I wish more creators would entertain this or allow me to talk about it on their channel and people can make up their mind. I've reached out to Pete from Murder Metal Mayhem, heard nothing. I like Pete, some of his amazing work. He hasn't bothered even messaging me back. What's going on, Pete? I think I've messaged AR Hayes asking for an interview. I told AR Hayes we could do either one-on-one or we could do three-way. How about AR Hayes, a Convict's Thoughts? You get me on with you and your buddy, Unfiltered Lucky, and or Pete from Murder Metal Mayhem. You can collaborate with both of them. And let's talk about my theory for a bit. And we'll talk about your theories too, everyone, you guys. But let's talk about the extraction removal operation. Again, North American Relocation Services on the boxes. The parent company, SIR, that's got a Schedule 48 that actually moves confidential informants, government officials that are in danger, wanted dead. Is that what we saw with the Idaho 4? You better believe it, my friends. Again, U.S. Marshals moving boxes out. North American Relocation Services moving company, no body bag seen, no white sheet seen over the victims, because they didn't have time necessarily, everyone, to try to have bodies in a body bag the next morning or a white sheet over actual bodies on a stretcher. You see, everyone? And they were probably worried to death that a student might come up and, I don't know, see or something. I don't know. But they didn't have time, I don't believe, to stage all that, everyone. That's why you didn't see body bags, right? And again, students would have been taking photos of the crime scene. And here's the huge tell, my friends, that Ellie and I talked about with the newly released, bloody photos and all that. We correlated it to, as I've always said on my videos, my friends, for the longest time. And Jay Embry won't tell you this. Apparently, I don't think AR Hayes or Unfiltered Lucky or Pete from Murder Metal Mayhem tell you this. But, or Pete's alluded to it in different ways, I think. But there would have been, you better believe that students would have been mentioning all the blood everywhere, as Ellie loves to exasperate. They'd be saying, what the fuck? There's blood everywhere. I can't, all the smell is disgusting. There was no mention of blood, my friends, on the neither on the 911 call that was delayed for 8 hours, right? None of these creators can reasonably explain if an atrocity took place. They can't explain to you, my friends, I don't believe, with reason, logic, common sense, why would Dylan Mortison and Bethany Funk, or anybody else for that matter, why would they delay a 911 call for 8 hours with a quadruple homicide? It doesn't happen, my friends. The only thing that makes sense, in my opinion, doesn't it, is that if there was an extraction, if the feds actually removed those 4 students, knowing their lives were in danger, because there was surveillance all over the apartments, all over the neighborhoods, right? Undercover cops everywhere. The U.S. Marshals, my friends, trust me, they're not going to allow gangbangers or high cartel members or a Brian Koberger. They're not going to let anybody go in there and stab 4 healthy people to death, especially when they had a government witness or a confidential informant lived most likely in that house, helping with the drug task force to do the drug bust, my friends. That's what was going on, right? There's no way there. I am convinced to this day, my friends, unless somebody can somehow change my mind, there's no way the U.S. Marshals would have missed that. Okay, and yet Jay Embry. Let's go back to Jay Embry for a moment, my friends, because I meant to say this earlier. So he runs with the fact he believes apparently everything that Steve G tells us, okay? Doesn't tell you that Steve G is probably a Fed himself. He's got this major IT background, I don't know for sure, but I got a lot of questions about Steve G. And certainly Jay Embry does not tell you apparently that, come on, reason, logic, common sense, the FBI are probably controlling Steve G to put out a certain narrative. He's got to sell that, to the majority of the public, that his daughter is dead. Okay. Even though she's safe, she'll continue to be safe. Same with Maddie, Ethan, and Zen, I believe. They're all safe on a beautiful beach, living a great lifestyle somewhere, most likely. And if you have any doubts, my friends, Christy G told you as much in so many words. She literally said in an interview, and Ellie and I have played it in our videos. Bubbly Waters was the first one to discover this. In an interview, Christy G Probably let it out by an accident, I'm sure, my friends. Remember, she said Maddie just bought a new house, as in house. Have you ever seen Jay Embry Pazzarotti? Have you ever seen him play that clip? No, you haven't, everyone, because it totally blows his narrative out of the water. And a lot of people are going to realize, in my opinion, that they've been hoodwinked by Jay Embry. They've been lied to potentially. Okay. I'll just put it like that. All right. We got to be very careful with some of these creators out there, my friends. If we really want the truth. Okay. And by the way, so Jay Embry, as part of this, my friends, remember, Steve G claims that his daughter, and again, I don't believe this, my friends. This is why you see me exasperated, inflection in my voice. I don't believe Kaylee was killed. All right. And if I did believe she was killed, I'd be almost emotional, sad talking about this. Okay. But Steve G, remember, he went on about some of the wounds that the girls had, particularly his daughter with her facial structure, right? And he just, I think he mentioned about her nose. So Jay Embry, you know what he said? He thinks that one of the alternative perps, so one of the gangbangers, right? He's all about, the Aryan Knights were able to do this and did do this quadruple homicide with he's got no evidence to back it up, but that's Jay Embry's theory, right? He wants to let know that. He literally said that he thinks Kaylee's nose was busted with the butt end of a gun. Think about these outrageous, this is just one of many, my friends, outrageous conspiracy claims that he puts out with no evidence to back it up. Okay. And my friends, look up the definition of disinformation. Remember, everyone, I told you that the feds will put out some creators as misinformation, disinformation agents. I'm not going to tell you that you should think that Jay Embry is one of them. I'll let you make up your mind on what I'm saying right now, everyone. One of the things of disinformation is often, you're going to put out an emotionally charged narrative. You're going to make outrageous claims, okay, and want the public to buy into it. That's part of disinformation often, everyone. And, certain people that are good at it, they're going to try to pull on your heartstrings, right? And get you to follow them. Okay. I'm just telling you, everyone. And again, you're listening from somebody that actually supported fully some of what Jay Embry was saying at the beginning of the case. But then you realize, no, I think he's full of shit, largely. There was no atrocity. There was no stabbings. There's no proof. There's no body bags. There's no leaked autopsy photos. Again, they didn't even treat it like a real crime scene. They destroyed the house. You got USC Code 31 that allows the United States, and rightly so at times, to stage a violent event, especially if a confidential informant's been compromised, everyone. They can legally do all this. And yet Jay Embry he goes over the laws at times, right? He pretends that he cares so much about the law in the United States and justice, right? He wants truth and justice. Well, why don't you mention USC Code 31, Jay Embry? Or why don't you have me on for an interview and let's discuss things like USC Code 31, allowing the feds to stage a violent event? Could that have been for the Idaho 4? Let's talk about US Code 352, I believe. I have it written down. I've gone over this before, which is Witzik law, my friends, right? It's not normal judicial law. That's what we saw happen in the Idaho 4, didn't we, my friends, with the hearings? It was a total show hearing. And if there was ever a trial, it would just been a show trial. It was all nonsense. That's what US Code, I believe, 352 basically does, my friends. They use national security, just like USC Code 31. They use national security with exemptions under the Patriot Act and prosecutorial discretion, and they can literally fake deaths, murders. Okay, folks, this is a fact. And you don't think it happened, the Idaho 4? I think it did, my friends. Come on. We don't have to believe FBI, CIA nonsense anymore on this case. And some of U.S. Marshals. They've done their job. The students are they're out of the United States. They're protected, in my opinion, everyone, right? They've got infrastructure. This is a real fact, everyone, that the United States has massive infrastructure, not only in the United States, but all over the world to protect witnesses, confidential informants at times, government officials, people that are valuable to the government, that are like wanted dead. This is real infrastructure, my friends. So if my theory is correct and the 4 students are alive, they're protected, my friends. We don't have to buy into the nonsense and the lies anymore. Okay, they're out of the country, man. They're probably in Puerto Rico. But anyway, Steve G is so sketchy. Thank you for Lex Green. I totally agree. Allie Jones 1727 says these people were in United States, not stupid. You be able to tell a dead person from an unconscious person after hours and the smell alone. Exactly, Allie Jones. Exactly. Remember, you had Hunter, who I believe was just largely an actor hired in all this, and friends of the 4 students and everybody in the house, I guess, right? And Hunter Johnson's probably being read in to a certain degree by law enforcement, in my opinion. Sure seemed that way. And so Hunter Johnson, everyone, he didn't go on about the blood. Remember, he was supposed to, Pete from Murder Metal Mayhem brought this up, but Pete still is just going along largely, though, with that an atrocity took place. He goes along with the narrative. That's why I want Pete to interview me in part. Let's talk about the real extraction removal operation theory, Pete. Your first theory at the very beginning, you never mentioned the word extraction, but I think it was like 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, my friends, Pete brought up the possibility, one of the many theory possibilities, that the students could be alive. And Pete, you were right on the money, in my opinion. So let's talk about it, Pete. Okay? I'm not here to destroy any of your other narratives, Pete. We can bounce our ideas off one another. You'll get a lot of viewers, I believe, a lot of engagement, hopefully, with us in an interview. 2 masculine dudes, dude. Let's do it. AR Hayes, the same offer holds to you, buddy, and Unfiltered Lucky. You see, my friends, I know I'm all over the place right now, but these creators, in one way, I really respect. I respect them. Most of these people are nice people. I think most of them mean well, but I think, my friends, at least some of them, as Ellie said, it seems like and I'm not mentioning the names that I just mentioned. I'm not saying that those are the ones, but some of these people, my friends, their top priority is to make money and not telling the truth. They're going to go along with the narrative that the atrocity took place, right? And some of them are grifting and making money. I'm not here to just make money. I've not made a dime yet from any of my videos, everyone. But hopefully in the future, I might start asking for money from time to time. People that want to genuinely support my channel, I'd be very thankful because I definitely need it. I want to hire an editor, etc. Everyone, okay? But my main thing is, even if I make money, I'm trying to tell the truth, everyone. Unless somebody can prove to me that these students are really dead and that the extraction removal theory and the witness protection, that the students are in witness protection, has no validity to it, then I'm going to believe that the students are alive. And this, again, theory is very positive, everybody. We don't have to feel demoralized or sad, I don't believe, for the victims or for all 4 students' families either. I have some sympathy towards Steve G and Christy G, because if I'm right and Kaylee's alive and Maddie, the parents aren't going to see them very often, especially in the next, couple of years, right? But they'll probably take vacations and they'll probably be with Kaylee and Maddie at some point. That's my prediction, but that's speculation, right? So nothing adds up. So yeah, exactly. So again, my friends, Hunter was supposed to take the pulse. Pete from Murder Metal Mayhem said this, and I would love to give credit to Pete again in an interview. If Pete would show some courage and get me on his show, interview me, Pete, or come on my show, dude, one or the other, okay? Pete said, again, that Hunter was supposed to take the pulse. Remember, he's standing over Xana's body, right? And again, there's going to be blood everywhere around Xana. She stabbed supposedly, 67 or 70 times? Come on, folks. There's no alternative Perps or Brian Koberger that stabbed Xana all these times. It's a totally nonsense, emotionally charged narrative and lie, in my opinion, my friends. Complete lie fabrication. Again, the feds were trying to stage a violent event. Okay, folks? Staging deaths. That's what this case is really about, folks. Okay? And a rescue operation took place. And the U.S. Marshals were obviously successful. They removed them out of the country. That's why you had a delayed 911 call for 8 hours. My friends, I meant to say this earlier, right? I believe the feds naturally told, most likely Dylan and Bethany, Do not call 911 for at least 8 hours. We're removing these students. We're getting them out of here. Okay, folks, it's that simple. That's the only thing that makes sense, in my opinion, of that delayed 911 call. Okay, I mean, there's no other way to say it. And again, Hunter, my friends. So Hunter takes the pulse of Xana. Just imagine this. And as Pete rightly said, everyone, yet he had no blood on his hands, no blood on his shoes. You'd have blood all over you, at least on your hands and shoes, as Pete, I think, sort of alluded to. There was nothing, everyone. Come on, folks. Hunter's not going on about the blood. None of the students took photos of the crime scene. You know what teenagers and young adolescents are like in an environment like that. No security camera footage of the crime taking place. And by the way, my friends, the feds would have had cameras most likely in that house, especially if a confidential informant's living there. And they would have had, as I talked with Ellie, my friends, they would have had hard surveillance, knowing what the hell's going on and all around. They would have had soft surveillance with it's called I think commercial passive surveillance, something like that, where they monitor bank records, especially if you got a confidential informant. Therefore, they probably monitor most likely all the students' bank statements at times, phone records, listening to phone calls, tapping their phones. Because again, my friends, if there's at least one confidential informant living at 1122 King Road, and many of us speculate that there was, and they were helping, therefore, the feds most likely with their drug investigations, because the feds were desperate to, they wanted to do some major drug busts of the Aryan Knights, Aryan families, elements of them, and the, high cartel members. We saw there was a huge drug bust apparently before the I-04 happened, and there was a massive drug bust, we know, in Washington State, a month or so later, right, everyone? So the feds were successful, my friends. The U.S. Marshals were successful, but they had to stage a quadruple homicide, I believe, my friends, right? For at least two reasons: to protect one or more confidential informants, right? And the girls all know one another. Maddie and Kaylee obviously had to be rescued because they're in the same room. Kaylee's probably the CI, I believe, confidential informant. Maybe Maddie as well. She would have been. Kaylee couldn't help probably to they probably couldn't help but talk amongst each other probably too much, whatever. Or both of them were CI. So the feds are naturally going to get them out of the room, I believe, that night, everyone. And then it doesn't take much of a leap to think that they believe the U.S. Marshals or knew that Xana was in danger, probably Xana, and that Ethan could have been just there by who knows, by he's just or had to be extracted because maybe the U.S. Marshals they may not even been absolutely positive that Ethan was going to come into that house that night. He's the boyfriend. He doesn't live there, right, folks? And the fact that he was there and Xana's obviously her life could be in danger, then the U.S. Marshals have to get rid of all four of them. Now, why Bill, Dylan, and Bethany were left, that's the $1 million question. But it's probably because, for whatever reason, Bethany and Dylan, they didn't have their lives in danger. They didn't put their lives in danger. They weren't probably helping with the feds with drug investigations. They were living their best lives. And the rest is just them trying to do this. They do this pitiful acting job. They weren't, in my opinion, everyone, they didn't cry genuinely. I mean, it was so fake. Everybody has said this, or so many people, right? So it's so fake, my friends. Come on. Let's not buy into the lies anymore. That's why Ellie gets so exasperated as well as I do at times. And I know a lot of people, you in the comments, get exasperated too. Allie Jones 1727 says, these people were in United States, not stupid. You'd be able to tell a dead person from an unconscious person after hours and the smell alone. I read that comment earlier. Thank you, Allie Jones 1727. It's so true, folks. And yet we didn't see people acting as if people were dead, stabbed to death with blood everywhere. Come on. You'd be mentioning the blood everywhere on a 911 call, or at the very least, you'd be mentioning in front of the cops, my friends. There was no mention of the blood. There was no mention of blood asking from the cops. I'm not sure why the cop wouldn't have, whoever police or cops were asking, remember they were interviewing the students, or they were interviewing Hunter, I believe, one of the students, and they interviewed Dylan, right? Dylan or Bethany out front. The girls, the cop didn't even say, anything about blood or where the girl stabbed, I don't believe. And Dylan Bethany, they didn't even complain about the blood everywhere or the smell. I mean, it's just, folks, it goes against all common sense that you wouldn't mention that, doesn't it? A lot of people have said this. Come on, folks. So we only got 6 people on the live today. I guess so many people are super busy tonight, man. They didn't join me on the live, but I appreciate even 8 people on this live so far. We'll get this video out. We'll try to share it. Again, these are my opinions, folks. And again, everyone, Steve G, he had a wonderful relationship seemingly with Kaylee, right? And they have, of course, Olivia Gonzalez. She's living her best life, and that's wonderful. But again, everyone, Olivia Gonzalez, Steve and Christy G's other daughter, right? Christy G, it was all an act, wasn't it, everyone? The way she went on and on about Brian Koberger being the most evil man, to commit these crimes. Don't you think, folks, that most likely Olivia Gonzalez knows that her loving, beautiful sister, Kaylee and Maddie and Xana and Ethan, doesn't she know that they're alive? Don't you think she's been read in a little bit, at least by the parents, if not the cops? Okay. Certain law enforcement, if they did read her in. But most likely it was just the parents, my friend. They would have told Olivia, Kaylee's alive. Olivia knows this, or Christy G and Steve G would have told her this, my friends. So you don't have to, in my opinion, folks, you don't have to feel sad for Olivia Gonzalez, or not too sad. I mean, it's a little bit sad that she may not see her daughter for the longest time, or very seldom. Because again, I believe they're out of the country, folks. Kaylee and Maddie and Xana and Ethan. And again, but they're alive, folks. They are alive and probably very healthy, very well. Again, Maddie apparently just bought a new house. If you believe Christy G, her comment that she let out in an interview, obviously by an accident, my friends. Everyone knows the word she was going to say. She used the word how, as in house. Maddie just bought a new house. And then she left the interview, got on her phone. You can see it, everyone. People have speculated she was probably calling her lawyer, knowing that she blew the case almost, right? She screwed up, in my opinion. And Ellie pointed out that just before that interview started, folks, you can hear on camera that she literally said, we got to get things right. So there's a lot of pressure on these parents to, in my opinion, to sell you the con job, folks, that their daughter and all the rest of the students, or all 3 other ones, are dead, stabbed to death. It's bullshit. Absolute bullshit. And yet Steve G's making all this money, with GoFundMe's. Like, come on, folks. As one woman said she's a creator, folks. I'm not the only one that said this. I totally agree with the woman. She said, I bet you, I think she even used the word guarantee. She said, I guarantee you that money Steve G's getting is going towards Kaylee's new life. Of course it is, my friends. In my opinion, it absolutely is. Better than in Steve G's pocket, but still, folks, you don't have to be conned. Let's not go along with these con artists, some of them as creators that I believe are throwing deliberate misinformation, disinformation, and all the other creators that are probably good people, though, but that want to make money, that are trying to they're seemingly going along with this atrocity took place, and they're not questioning, well, wait a sec. Maybe the students are alive. Maybe the people like ESTEY'S Crime Maze and many, many more people online, including also another creator, Joe from State of the Deep. He's one of the regular guests over Devil's Advocate show. He agrees with me in a large way, folks, that very well could have been an extraction removal operation. He was really leaning towards that. And I'm sure he probably still is. And I'm hoping to interview him, folks. So there's a lot of people online, my friends. They know the only thing that really sort of makes sense in this case is that the students were most likely rescued, taken out by, they were rescued by U.S. Marshals, taken out of the house under the cover of darkness, and they're in a WITSEC program, a federal witness security program in the United States. Witness protection, baby. And that's why, again, and Christy G let it out by an accident, I believe, that Maddie just bought a new house, as in house. So apparently, in these federal witness security programs, folks, at times, and probably with all the donations that Steve G and some of the family members are receiving, you can actually buy yourself a new house. Yeah. You can be rescued by the U.S. Marshals, which is a great thing. Get out of the country of the United States, right? Have the CIA through corporate media and local law enforcement, I believe, try to calm the public that the students are dead, using Nancy Grace, Ashley Banfield, and a lot of YouTube creators and grifters. And you can get rescue students, this being 4 students, folks, and you can actually have the girls can actually buy themselves a new house like Maddie. Isn't that wonderful, folks? So please don't be conned. We don't have to be lied to anymore, folks. Let's tell the truth of what happened. Because also, folks, the Idaho 4, I think, again, if you look throughout history, my friends, and the Idaho 4 could be very similar where certain factions, not all the feds, most feds do a great job, but certain intelligent agencies, some of the factions within these systems, we know, folks, over throughout history, they will do false flag events and they will fake deaths at times to try to override people's rights at times, folks. So we got to be very careful. Look no further than Brian Koberger. Birdie talked about it, my friends, with all the IgG, all this DNA nonsense, folks. You know, is that the Fed's way of trying to sneak in laws, right, to set up potentially innocent people or like whistleblowers, you know, and try to maybe try to set up, I don't know, but we got to be careful, folks, right? Look at 9/11, man. Look how much of our human rights were overridden, in particularly you guys in the United States, but it affects a lot of people in other countries too, folks, okay? Right? So the Idaho 4, my friends, we got to be careful. We don't want certain evil factions out there to try to override our human rights. In other words, my friends, and Bertie alluded to it, we don't want, you know, to buy into like a highly emotionally charged narrative, especially if it's not even true. But we don't want to buy into a highly charged emotional narrative. Bertie said this in so many words, but and have them override our rights using emotionally charged narrative. In other words, folks, okay. And I think that's what we're potentially seeing with the Idaho 4. Certainly, I believe an emotionally charged narrative and big lie, my friends, because the students were not stabbed to death. You would have seen body bags, right? You would have seen probably leaked autopsy photos. You would have had ambulance sirens. Remember in the morning, the next morning, folks, there were no sirens. There were no ambulances. You would have had EMEs making all kinds of noise with their engines and lights if you had a quadruple homicide, folks. That's a fact. There was nothing in the Idaho 4, right? You would have had a coroner come into the house, most likely well before the 7 hours. She waited 7 hours, the coroner, to come to the house. And then apparently you had the prosecution in the house before the coroner, folks, and cops. When does that happen? Is that protocol? Apparently the answer is no, folks, right? The coroner is the first one normally to go in the house. She's supposed to almost act like a soldier, you know, tell everybody clear out, because she's the coroner, folks, right? Doesn't she have authority at those crime scenes? You better believe she does. And we didn't see that protocol in the Idaho 4, my friends, because why would you have a typical protocol? You don't even have real deaths. It's a staged violent event, in my opinion, folks, right? So there's a lot of things that, yeah, are seemingly not going to make sense, as many of the comments come in and say, right? You know, in my opinion. And by the way, the coroner, my friends, again, you're not going to hear this apparently at all from Jay Embry. He's going to seemingly lead you on to the opposite viewpoint. Jay Embry apparently believes everything the coroner is saying, right? The students were stabbed. He's going to believe the coroner reports. Many other people are as well. It's all bullshit. Come on, folks. If you're staging a violent event, if you've rescued the students, got them out of the country, you can't believe the coroner. She's just read into it, my friends, right? She's done some good work and has an interesting career. She's an interesting woman. But in my opinion, everyone, she's totally controlled, right? She probably hates what she's doing, having to, you know, pretend that these students were killed. She acted like a robot and scared to death at times in her interviews, as many people have said. You know, folks, in my opinion, the coroner will absolutely know those students are alive. There's no doubt about it. And where, again, my friends, mainstream media would have got actual leaked autopsy photos if this quadruple homicide happened. Almost guaranteed, folks, especially nowadays. Okay? It hasn't happened with the Idaho 4. And another thing, my friends, you know, again, Jay Embry seemingly wants to convince you that an atrocity took place. in almost every video, my friends. It's almost like, think about Hitler, and some of the Nazis with their propaganda. Remember, Goebbels said famously, if you repeat a lie often enough, people will believe it. Is that what Jay Embry's doing at times? I'll just ask you as a question, folks. Is that what Embry's doing? Because almost every video, remember, he keeps saying an atrocity took place. An atrocity took place. He loves to use the word atrocity in his title. I may put so much pressure on this guy. I'm going to get him to back off that nonsense. You see, but he will never interview somebody like me, my friends. I don't think. I hope he shows some balls and courage one day. Get me on your show soon, Jay Embry. Let's have an interview. I'll treat you with respect, dude. But I'm going to ask you some hard questions that nobody has asked you. And this is why I don't believe he does interviews in part, my friends. He doesn't want to be caught in a lie or, out there, really obvious or something. Although, again, to me, it's obvious, folks, that he's making absolutely outlandish conspiracy claims at times. And he largely has no evidence to back this up. But he wants you to believe it, seemingly, folks. And one of them is even that an atrocity took place. No, there was no atrocity. And there's no evidence that Kaylee's nose got busted other than, coroner's report, whatever, injuries to Kaylee, which would be totally sad if it was true. But again, everyone, you would have seen body bags coming out. You wouldn't have had North American Relocation Services on the boxes with the parent company Serva that's got a Schedule 48 that works with the feds. That can't be a coincidence, folks, when the U.S. Marshals are moving these boxes out, right? It shows you that most likely a confidential informant was compromised. They rescued the students. They're moving their things, their shit out, the boxes, right? You don't have a cleaning company, which you almost always would, or a family, moving the boxes out. You have the U.S. Marshals moving the boxes out. And North American Relocation Services goes under within 2 or 3 days. It's deleted, folks, and no longer exists. And again, the parent company Serva with that Schedule 48 that works with the feds. They move money, they move assets to the government. Again, people that are wanted dead, like confidential informants, government officials, etc. Folks, doesn't that show that likely this was a staged crime scene? And again, nobody mentioning blood on the 911 call. A 911 call delayed 8 hours. How can all these YouTube creators still go along with an atrocity took place when a 911 call is delayed for 8 hours? And again, nobody's mentioning blood around the crime scene, folks. That doesn't that show you that there was no crime likely, my friends? This is the great news. It's all staged. It's all fake, folks, right? The U.S. Marshals, the feds did their job. I give them credit. We all should, in my opinion, folks. And now the students are most likely living their best life. All four. Okay? Again, I believe this theory should totally be celebrated, right? It's all positive, man. Lex Green 8 says, these guys are all cool, but they are scared of you. Why? You would make a great guest and make them more dollars. Oh, thank you. These guys are all cool, but they are scared of you. Well, why would they be scared of me, though, Lex Green, if they're going to make more dollars? Or are you saying I'm going to make more dollars? No. She says, why would they be? She goes, these guys are cool, but they are scared of you. Why? She says, you would make a great guest. Thank you very much. And she says, and make them more dollars. Well, you see, yeah, I guess she's saying, in other words, she thinks a lot of these YouTube creators, or some of them, that they're scared of me, probably because she agrees with me that they're afraid that their narrative is going to be destroyed and they can't have that. And yet she's saying that that I would make them more money. So come on, YouTube creators. A lot of you are in, and I understand, I want to make some money eventually too, if I could set up a donation page, or if somebody's willing to do me an email money transfer and sincerely leave me a comment if you want to express that you want to support my channel and what I'm trying to do. I would love to hire an editor, take this channel a whole other level, continue to reach out for support from all of you out there, continue to reach for support, and hopefully get guests on my show, go on other people's programs. I have been interviewed by remember Tommy Jude, who passed away. He died, unfortunately, folks. I was interviewed by him, on Once Upon a Crime Time. By the way, I give credit to devil's advocates. I don't agree with Lee at times, DA. He knows this, but he had the balls to at least allow me to talk about the extraction removal operation and show the overwhelming circumstantial evidence, I believe, that these students are alive. But then even DA, my friends, he had to shut it down apparently. And I got to ask why. Why did DA not want me to talk about the extraction removal operation anymore with his other guest, Joe from Stay the Deep? Well, DA told me he didn't want the whole show to be, he was exaggerating. He said he doesn't want the whole show to be about an extraction. And then he said things like, he exaggerated, saying that it seems like that, I guess Joe and I were talking like 40 minutes about an extraction removal operation. Well, no, it's not 40 minutes, DA, even though we could easily talk for 40 minutes. Now, my friends, I went off DA's show for two reasons, mostly because I've been injured. Okay. And I used to really enjoy being on his show for the most part, but also his show runs a little bit late for me. So DA had to replace me with somebody, at least for the time being. So he replaced me with a guy named Dago, who has a channel. And Dago does some good work, but I got a lot of questions about Dago, and he knows this. Will Dago have the courage and the balls and the integrity to ever have me on his show? We'll find out, folks, because I'm going to reach out to him if I haven't already done so. So anyway, Dago, again, he's seemingly trying to convince the public that he believes that an atrocity took place. Yet, I don't think he can back it up. You know, I even said, why didn't we see any body bags? Dago claims that in his line of work as an EMS, he literally said that if sometimes, I believe he said in his work, that they didn't have body bags. He claimed that they would try to, he said in so many words, I think, that they didn't want the families to see the damage of the victims, so they would cover them up or something like that. Well, wait a sec. If you have, that's why you have body bags or a white sheet, right, folks? To protect, so that not necessarily the families are going to see their loved ones dead. You know, mainstream media might somehow get a leak, but right, folks? I mean, does that make any sense? And somebody told me, I hope it's not true, they don't even think Dago was a real EMS. And I like Dago. Overall, he's a nice guy. We can iron all these out differences, that Dago, or questions, if you have me on your show for an interview. Okay. So anyway, DA replaced me with Dago, and now DA apparently he's not wanting me back on his show. I've even told DA, I will commit to once a week while I'm healing this injury. I will commit to once a week to be on your show. I would like to talk, go over the blood evidence, give my opinions and perspectives and thoughts on the blood evidence, the bloody photos, for example, in one area. And DA, you'd think he wanted me back on the show to discuss that, right, folks? He hasn't done it yet. And you got to ask, and I'm asking why. Anyway, I'm sort of sidetracking there, folks, but I hope you still support DA. He has a lot of interesting, amazing content, riveting content, interesting theories. But again, the one thing that DA knows we agree to disagree is, I tell DA, no, there wasn't any atrocity, in my opinion. He knows where I stand on that. And I believe all these creators, everyone, when you really think about it, they can't really back up that an atrocity took place, because there's more circumstantial evidence, my friends. And I laid it out to you a little bit here today, just a sampling. And you can see more with Ellie and I in our interview, my friends, and hear it. I think there's way more circumstantial evidence to show you that there wasn't a real crime that night, my friends. No. There's more circumstantial evidence to show you that, again, those students are actually most likely alive. They certainly weren't stabbed to death. They weren't murdered by Brian Koberger. They weren't taken out by alternative perps. And by the way, this video, my friends, I was supposed to expose Jay Embry and the gun rack guy. Remember, folks? Jay Embry does a video titled something like Gun Rack Guy. So for 2 years, at times, Jay Embry has shown a video, and you hear audio of a supposedly a gun being racked. And Jay Embry wants you apparently to think, because he thinks that apparently, if you believe that he thinks this, that the gun rack guy was out front of the house, one of the alternative perps, and he racked his gun. Well, first of all, my friends, remember, if you're staging a violent event, right, if you're faking a crime scene, we can't trust any of the audio largely that comes out in this case, folks, including a potential sound of a gun being racked. Folks, that audio could come from anywhere, couldn't it? There's no evidence to really show that that gun or a guy had a gun right out front and he's racking it. Come on, just like the audio screams, folks. Many people have picked apart the audio screams could have been run through a program and probably was, my friends. Again, my friends, the feds are, these think tanks. They're trying to put out misinformation, disinformation, I believe, everyone, on this case to try to make you think that an atrocity took place. And they're using some YouTube creators, I believe, everyone, to try to distract and at times lie to you. Okay. So I got a lot of questions about this Pab, Jay Embry. And I would have a beer with Jay Embry. He seems like a nice guy. But again, everyone, if we really want the truth, and I hope most of you want to know the truth of the Idaho 4, what really went down, you got to question, is Jay Embry the real deal? If he's the real deal, if he's telling you the real truth of what he truly believes in this case, have somebody like me on who doesn't believe you, Jay Embry, that an atrocity took place. And here's why, Jay Embry. I'll lay it out to you like I did with my audience on my channel over and over again. I'll tell you, Jay Embry, I don't think an atrocity took place, and here's why. Show us, said Jay Embry, why do you think an atrocity took place? And by the way, my friends, even if the gun rack was real, even if that was real, that I would argue that's a Fed, either trying to stage a violent event, or if you're going to extract students, in an operation and potentially their lives are in danger, you're going to come prepared possibly with a gun. And by the way, why would perps come in with a gun and you're not going to shoot at them? You're going to stab them instead and mutilate bodies for victims? And you're just going to use, and you know what Jay Embry said about the gun though? He thinks that the perps used a gun to intimidate Dylan and Bethany to not call 911 for 8 hours. Are you fucking kidding me? Excuse my language. Are you fucking kidding me? This is the outrageous claims, in my opinion, that this Jay Embry loves to make at times to you, the audience, and creators out there and audiences, folks. Yeah, come on. You don't really believe that, do you? That Jay Embry, do you really think Jay Embry really believes what he's saying there? And he claims that I don't believe what I'm saying? Because Jay Embry's responded to me in a video, folks, several times, right? And yet he says that the only way I can possibly interview him, because I challenged him to a boxing match first, I have to win the boxing match, or I challenge him to a boxing match and an interview. It doesn't have to be in that order, but I have to win the boxing match, and then he might, I think he said he might interview me. Still didn't say he would interview me. And I have to get 2,500 subs. Like this guy, if you're after the truth, Jay Embry, just have me on your show, man. Very soon, dude. Don't put all these qualifications, as Ellie says. It's ridiculous. Even though I would win the boxing match as long as I get this thing healed, my injury to my intercostal. Somebody left a comment earlier about A.R. Hayes. I want to read it here. Let's see here. Where did it go? Oh my God, it disappeared on me. Folks, whoever left a comment about A.R. Hayes, I don't know what it said. Please leave me the comment again so I can see it, okay? Because it disappeared. Yeah, gun rack guy, bullshit. Exactly, Lex Green 8. I hope you get that message across to people, folks, Lex Green 8. It's all bullshit in my opinion. But again, folks, remember, certain disinformation agents, and I'm not saying for sure that Jay Embry's one of them, but I got questions for this guy. Again, is that part of disinformation where you're putting out on purpose these outrageous claims and you can't back it up? And if he could back it up, my friends, again, why isn't he doing interviews? Why isn't he doing more interviews? He finally just started to do an interview after hundreds and hundreds of videos with no interviews other than one video with A.R. Hayes. He finally does a couple with Lana for Truth or Transparency. Lana does some good work. But again, my friends, is she doing it on purpose? She still thinks an atrocity took place. She's never apparently looked at the fact that, wait a sec, here is the actual circumstantial evidence, overwhelming, that the students are most likely alive. And how could there be an atrocity when none of the students are mentioning blood on a 911 call or in interviews, and you got a 911 call that's delayed 8 hours, folks, and you got 2 survivors? We're supposed to believe that 4 victims were stabbed to death by either Brian Kohlberger or, let's say, if Lana believes Aryan Knights or family did it, like Jay Embry does. So let's say gangbangers murdered 4 people. They're going to leave Dylan and Bethany, 2 other women, alive? survivors that can identify them? That doesn't happen, folks. That makes no sense. And all the creators know it, right? So anyway, it's just my opinions there. So Steve is suing WSU. So won't they have to do a deep dive to the case to show Brian's guilty? If Steve knows Kaylee is alive, then why sue to maybe blow lid off case? User, I'm not sure. I just know that Steve G, in my opinion anyway, Steve G knows his daughter's alive. He has probably all kinds of reasons to sue. He's probably being told to do this. Maybe it's another money maker. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. So he can make. He's all about making money, I believe, for him and his lovely wife. And that's, I can understand making some money, but again, everyone, I'm just saying, in my opinion, we got to ask the hard questions here. I don't think we should necessarily believe Steve G and what he's been telling us. I think he's being told to sell the story, okay, on a quadruple homicide taking place when it really did. That's all I'm saying, folks. And it's pretty important, right? Why would they let Brian go to prison for life? Well, because that's a great question, user. I can't remember, and you got a bunch of letters after your user name. Brian, I believe, is not in jail. He may have been in prison for a couple of days or a few weeks in a holding cell with the feds, near the feds, but he's not in prison now. He's on a beach somewhere for the most part, out of the country, unless they have to bring him back in for a while, just like for the hearings. Brian Koberger, I've always said, I think he works for the feds, folks. He was either an informant or he was literally a federal agent himself, folks, used for the perfect distraction, and we saw it play out. Brian Koberger, I know the rabbit hole goes deep, folks, but just look at it and look at it from the Fed's point of view and the FBI. Brian Koberger, we know, wanted to enroll with the law enforcement, the police, folks. So you better believe that Brian Koberger was most likely a plant, in my opinion, and we saw it play out. You pretend that Brian Koberger, at least on corporate media, did this crime. Then you have, certain segments of the public where we'll fight to get Brian Koberger released. There's no way he could have done it. It had to be more than one person that did the stabbings, etc. But it's all horseshit, folks. Yes, but no, Brian Koberger didn't do it. But how about there was no crime at all, folks? It's all staging, including the DNA on a knife sheath, including the stabbings, in my opinion, folks. There was no crime, real crime. It's all staging, folks, clearly, in my opinion. Where is the comment about A.R. Hayes? It disappeared. Why? I can't. Oh, hold on. I think I'm able to start moving the comments around here, folks. One sec. Let's see. I've watched a lot of again, a lot of these creators. I've spent time actually watching a lot of their videos from time to time. Most of the time, I don't have lots of time to watch their videos over and over again, or on each video. But I've spent the time, like many of you, to check out other creators, checking out their content, and the creators that I mentioned, folks. I've checked out Jay Embry's, a lot of his videos at times. I've checked out at times A.R. Hayes, A Convict's Thoughts. By all means, if you want to support this guy and Unfiltered Lucky, do so. And a lot of people do. And Pete from Murder Metal Mayhem, even Lana for Truth and Transparency. That's totally up to you guys. If you want to give them money, if you want to give them your time, I don't say that's a bad thing, folks. All I'm saying is I have questions. That's why I want to collaborate with these creators and get interviewed, because I would ask them, if you are you still going to believe an atrocity took place after our interview? Let's see. Have me on for an interview. Let me lay out my position, my theory, and it's not just mine, but a lot of other people are hopping on this theory, folks. I think this is partly why the feds had so much pressure put on them that they finally released these bloody photos. And yet it's so fast, so fake, in my opinion, folks. Yes, they took bloody photos, but it was all part of staging a violent event, folks. The first thing, as I said earlier, the first thing that they would do was to take photos, of fake blood, and paint on the foundation, the house, all this horse shit that they did. But that's the first thing you would do, is take photos, folks, to be possibly released to the public if you're staging a violent event. Okay, so Where did the comment on AR Hayes go? Another one says, Allie Jones, 1727. Yes, laugh out loud. I asked my mates after showing crime scene video of cops going in that morning to guess what crime had happened. They couldn't believe 4 people had been murdered there. Yeah, exactly. Right? Come on, folks. We're over 3 years later. Do you really believe still that an atrocity took place? If you believe an atrocity took place, you're believing everything or most of what Jay Embry's told you, and a lot of these other creators. And a lot of these other creators, I do have some respect for at times. I do, but I question them. Why do you keep saying that an atrocity? Why do you believe supposedly that an atrocity took place? Because I'll show you that an atrocity most likely did not take place. Let's talk about it with the audience. So I hope some of these creators, I hope some of you in the audience will share perhaps my lives and my videos to them. Let's get these messages across, folks. Let them know that I'm trying to reach out to any creator for the most part that would be willing to do an interview, either on their show or come on mine. And hopefully I'll reach that 1,000 subs soon, and then the algorithms apparently help to take off. The reason, of course, I'm not at 1,000 subs yet, folks, is I haven't done enough videos, right, or lives yet. Once you do enough videos, obviously, you're going to get more and more views, more algorithms taking place. Your message will get out to more people. I'm just trying to get my message out, folks, to a lot of people that are searching, especially for the truth, right? And again, I want a respectful discussion for the most part with these creators. With Jay Embry, I might be a little bit harder on him, but I'll still be overall respectful. And it'll be 2 masculine guys bouncing their ideas off one another. What harm could that do, Jay Embry, Pavarotti? Have me on your show, dude. For once, interview a man. Besides AR Hayes that you did a half-ass interview, interview another man, Jay Embry, like ESTEY'S Crime Maze, that's connecting the dots with Ellie and other people, showing you, well, wait a sec, Jay Embry. The evidence doesn't really show an atrocity took place. It's been staged, in my opinion. It has been staged, man. Under USC Code 31, again, the feds can stage a violent event. Why don't we talk about that, Jay Embry? Because I think it's real important. Let's do that. Let's see if Jay Embry has courage and balls. You see, I love putting pressure on this guy. He had to respond several times to my video. And by the way, everyone, I've kept it light. I'm not always serious, and I'm not always bashing Jay Embry. Thanks to this other creator named Outcast404, he did a funny baby video with me challenging Jay Embry, folks. He had me as a baby face and Jay Embry as a baby face. And he had Jay Embry responding to me. It was hilarious. You guys got to check it out. It's on my channel. Even DA played part of it on his show too, folks, with our guests. And they were howling, And I played Outcast's funny video of Jay Embry and I on my channel, folks. So please don't say that, oh, Jason, you shouldn't be bashing other creators. You shouldn't be bashing Jay Embry. He's a really good researcher and all that. Well, he might be good at some research at times. That's great. But is he telling you the whole truth? I don't think he is. And if he is, make your case, Jay Embry. Please, audience, reach out, put pressure on these creators in a good way. And I'll say it to Jay Embry and to the audience. Jay Embry, Pavarotti, Pazzatini, if you got the balls and courage, dude, just have me on your show, man. I challenge you. Let's do an interview. Let's have some fun. Let's bounce ideas off one another. I'll only be the second man that you ever interview, Jay Embry, but I'm the man that's connecting all the dots to the extraction removal operation. A totally different narrative that you put out for hundreds of videos, Jay Embry. I'm connecting the dots that those students are most likely in a WITSEC program, witness protection. And I'm not the only one that's saying it, Jay Embry, connecting the dots. A lot of other people are too. But in terms of YouTube creators on the Idaho 4, I'm the only one that I know of that's really sticking to it. I don't hop to other crazy theories. I'm willing to listen. If you want to talk about other outlandish claims too, Jay Embry, let's hear what you got to say for yourself with me and the audience. But I'm the only creator that I know of, other than Birdie's mentioned it several times. But I'm the only creator that I know of that continually tells you over and over again that I believe that the students are most likely alive. They are protected. under the WITSEC program, Federal Witness Security Program in the United States. Again, this is amazing news, folks. And Birdie admitted it too, that it's great news if it's true, right? It's great news. We shouldn't be condemned because we think the students are alive, okay? And no, it doesn't put their lives in danger. They're already protected, folks. They've been protected for several years now, will continue to be protected as long as they live their low profile life, right? So there you go, my friends. I got to get off this live soon. I wish I could find the video of somebody that left a short comment and they mentioned A.R. Hayes. I like Lex Green 8. I wouldn't tell Jay Embry this in an interview. I don't want to hurt his feelings. But she said earlier, he's weak behind them weirdo glasses, she said about Jay Embry. And Lex Green 8, she sees through Jay Embry, you know. But again, we can all have our own opinions. I hope Jay Embry's not a actual disinformation agent. I really hope he's not, folks. And we can find out. Let's do an interview, Jay Embry. Interview ESTEY'S Crime Maze. And you know I'm going to get a lot more subs. I'm going to get thousands of more subs probably very quickly. And I'll thank you, the audience, folks, for that. But by being interviewed with Jay Embry, you know he knows I'm going to get thousands more subs from his large audience. They're going to be curious and want to watch my videos. They're going to want to get more caught up to speed as well. They're going to listen to our interview, many of them. And that's what it should be all about, shouldn't it, folks? I mean, you know, and I'll be thankful for all the new subs. But again, my friends, I think Jay Embry's scared to death, apparently, that his narrative's going to be destroyed, or he would have interviewed me by now. He would have given me a chance, folks. Here I am in the Idaho 4 community. I actually have a channel. I'm a creator. I've actually been interviewed before. I've actually been also a guest interviewed by Devil's Advocates, participating with other guests on the amazing platform Devil's Advocates. Jay Embry knows this, folks. So Jay Embry, give me a chance, dude. Have one of the creators in your community who's asking you for an interview to talk Idaho 4, to talk powerful truth and tantalizing speculation at times. Let's do it, Jay Embry. Let's work together, dude. I'm putting it out there, man. Come on, dude. So there you go. Lex Green 8 says, I found the comment. A.R. Hayes and Peter and such. And I am a dude, ESTEY'S Crime Maze. Oh, great. Lex Green 8, you're a dude. Fantastic. What do you mean A.R. Hayes and Peter and such? What do you mean by that? And I hope you reach out to them maybe for me. Tell them I want to be interviewed by these people and work with them. You know, collaborate, right? Lex Green, the dude says here, the whole case has become an advertisement for Othram Labs, for however it's spelled. Exactly. Folks, again, we got to be careful. We want to protect our human rights and fundamental freedoms from being infringed on, folks, right? We don't want small, certain evil groups out there to you know, do anything nefarious when it comes to DNA. We want everything on the up and up. So this is very important. She says this whole case, and I think she's right, has been an advertisement for Othram Labs, for however it's spelled. And of course, my friends, you're never going to learn from Othram Labs in this case that Brian Kohlberger had nothing to do with any stabbings, that there was no stabbings. It was a staged crime scene, in my opinion, folks. It was a staged crime scene. And the circumstantial evidence shows you as much. Really, I would almost say direct evidence. Again, nobody mentioning blood. You got a delayed 911 call 8 hours. And by the way, everyone, Jay Embry apparently hasn't mentioned this to you. If it was a real crime scene, you wouldn't put a mattress in like a hillbilly truck with half of it hanging out, which we saw in this case, right, folks? Those of us that know the Idaho 4 well, the feds, or the forensic scientists, local law enforcement, I believe it was, they put a mattress half hanging out with a mattress cover on part of it and the blood showing. So, I mean, talk about contamination, folks, right? Talk about not sealing up evidence properly. Folks, this doesn't happen, especially a quadruple homicide. You would never, ever have local law enforcement and or forensic scientists to put a mattress in like a hillbilly moving truck. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? And again, my friends, the red on the foundation of the house. I used to think the first year that was blood on the foundation of the house as well, even though I never thought Brian Kohlberger did the crime. But that blood, so-called blood, that confused me the first year. I bought into it. But my friends, then when you dig in and connect the dots and you use reason, logic, common sense, and other creators started talking about it, particularly people in the comment section, folks, like you realize, well, wait a second. That can't be blood. It has to be paint. Why? Because it wouldn't have been still red. Even DA, I'd like to bring this up on DA's show because he even admitted to me in a conversation or a message, he said, yeah, you're right. It wouldn't be still bright red 8 hours later and days later. It was still bright red, folks. So it can't be blood. So what is it? It's paint, most likely, folks. It was part of the staging because, my friends, remember at that time, if you stage a violent event, they still had to put one thing in front of our eyes to try to convince the public that a crime scene took place. What better way than you put some streaks of paint on the foundation of the house, folks, right? And then you get mainstream media picking that up, pretending it's real blood from victims. It was such a bloody crime scene. This highly, highly charged emotional narrative. Folks, it couldn't be real blood, in my opinion. It could not be. And many people know this. Reason, logic, common sense, folks. And guess what? Finally, the forensic scientists, forensic teams, they would have had to wash that away within 24 to 48 hours for numerous reasons. One of them being it would be a health hazard, right, folks? Ask any forensic scientist. I'm sure they would tell you, or investigator. They would have erased that blood. If it was real blood, they would have had to wash that away. Why wouldn't they wash it away within a few days? They collect the evidence, they take photographs, but my friends, they put it out for the whole public to see day after day after day. It was probably up to 2 weeks on the foundation house, most likely. That's ridiculous. That doesn't happen in real life, folks, unless it wasn't real blood. Unless, again, certain feds are staging that violent event, folks. Okay? I'm just saying. Yeah, Lex Green, when you say that these guys are scared of you, I think Jay Embry is scared of me. I wish he wasn't scared of me, at least scared of interviewing me. I hope I put so much pressure on this guy that he feels that he has no choice but to interview me. You know, give me a chance here. Let's talk, Jay Embry, in a live discussion with your audience. And I hope other creators aren't scared of me destroying their narrative. I think a lot of these people are nice. They're nice people. They do great work. They probably help humanity in a lot of different areas. But when it comes to the IDO4, I hope maybe they can educate me on, I'm sure some of them can educate me on certain aspects of the IDO4. And I think I might be able to educate them on other aspects like the extraction removal operation. If they haven't looked into it, I'll say, and I'll connect the dots with all of you out there. I think this is an extraction removal operation. The students are in a WITSEC program, Federal Witness Security Program, witness protection. I think the U.S. Marshals got them out of there. I think part of it was pre-planned, most likely, and here's why. I'll lay out the evidence for it like I did in this live today. I tried to, folks, right? I think part of it was pre-planned, too, because they knew that potentially, again, if it's a confidential informant in the house, folks, reason, logic, common sense, the U.S. Marshals know that they're putting their lives potentially at risk, right? By some very potentially dangerous gangbangers or high cartel members, whatever. So they're going to protect them, right? And one of the protections is to have possibly a pre-planned extraction operation, particularly as they collect data, monitoring phone calls, etc., folks. And if they know or suspect that their lives are in danger. So here's an example, my friends. And again, you'll never hear this from Jay Embry and hardly any other creators talk about it. But again, sometimes Christy G and Steve G, sometimes these parents talk too much, folks. Okay, in my opinion. Christy G let it out. She told you, and she was just being honest. She said that Kaylee photobombed her the day before, meaning the day before this event went down of the so-called students being stabbed to death, right? On November 22nd? So Christy G said the night before, the day before, her daughter Kaylee photobombed her. Why would Kaylee give all her photos to her mom and just coincidentally the day before? And by the way, everyone, I've had several women come up to me, mothers, and they say, Jason, I have daughters roughly the same age as Kaylee and Maddie. They have never photobombed me, meaning giving most or all your photos, because apparently Kaylee gave all her photos to her mom, photobombed her. And the feds took Kaylee's phone, folks. That the parents, I kind of feel for the parents here in this regard again. The parents never received their loving daughter's phone back, folks. Why? Reason, logic, common sense. Ellie and I just, I think, used some critical thinking. We said, well, because if it was an extraction removal, if the girls are alive and the U.S. Marshals got them obviously out of the country, most likely, you're not going to be able to give the phone back to the parents, because if the parents look at the phone, I mean, this information could get out to the public, right? And they don't want the cover blown. They want to do this cover up. So you can't give Kaylee's phone back to the parents, folks. You just can't. It's unfortunate for the parents, but but that's why Kaylee, I believe, gave all her photos to her mom, isn't it, folks? I'll ask you, does that not make sense? And does that not show you most likely this was sort of a pre-planned extraction? You know, I think so. And maybe just pre-planned for 24 hours before. So I'm not saying pre-planned for months. Yeah, Lex Green 8 is a dude. By the way, Lex Green 8, you make some great comments. Are you ever interested in an interview? If not, if you don't want to show your face and don't do interviews, that's fine. That's cool. By the way, can you guys reach out to Outcast 404 for me? He's got an amazing channel. Please give this guy full support. He did a really funny I can't even talk, my friends. He did a really funny comedic. No, that's not a right word. Anyway, he did a really funny video with Jay Embry and I as babies, because I was challenging Jay Embry to a boxing match and an interview. It's hilarious. Please check it out, you guys. You can find it on my video feed if you want, and you'll see a baby, me as a baby. So anyway, please reach out to Outcast 404 if you have the time, and just tell Outcast I've left him a comment. I now that I'm doing interviews on my channel. By the way, everyone, all this time since I created my channel, ESTEY'S Crime Maze, so I guess over a year probably now, I didn't know that you can actually invite guests using free StreamYard. I thought you can't do it. I thought you had to pay for StreamYard to be able to invite guests, and that's not the case. So that's great. So now I can actually invite guests even using free StreamYard. This is fantastic. And again, I hope some of you will check out my interview with Ellie and I. And by the way, I forgot, everyone, if you enjoy my videos, please subscribe to my channel. Please consider subscribing. Give me the thumbs up if you enjoy. Helps with the algorithms as well. Hit the bell icon to be notified for future videos, okay? And feel free to leave me a comment, folks. I appreciate your engagement. That all helps with the algorithms, getting the videos and lives out to you, ultimately to you guys and gals, okay? Let's get these messages to the public more, okay? Even if people are going to agree to disagree with me, that's okay. But if people disagree, especially YouTube creators, I want to know why. Let's make your case. Why do you disagree with me that an extraction removal operation most likely took place and those students were rescued? There was no stabbings. Why do you disagree with me? Why do you disagree that I'm showing you, again, North American Relocation Services? The U.S. Marshals are moving the boxes out? The parent company server that's got the Schedule 48 to move valuable law enforcement assets like confidential informants, again, government officials, people wanted dead. USC Code 31, which allows them to do this, my friends. It allows the feds to legally stage a violent event, particularly if confidential informants been compromised. Let's talk about it. None of these creators hardly are talking about it, my friends. The only one that I know of that's talked about it hardly at all is Birdie, folks, at times. And then Birdie will hop on other theories, and he'll invite guests talking about that they think an atrocity took place and alternative perps, and I don't believe that, but it is what it is. And Birdie, he knows how to conduct an interview, and I still want Birdie to interview me. Let's tell the real truth, Birdie. Let's talk together, dude. And we can still speculate when it's called upon, of course. And I'll give credit to Birdie in the interview for some of his amazing research, of course. I always do. So Birdie knows who I am. He's talked about me briefly. I went on a phone call with him. That's another thing, my friends. Before I end this live, please reach out to Birdie for me if you have the time. Leverage your time. Reach out to Birdie for me. Put some, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but, ask this guy. Tell him Jason ESTEY'S Crime Maze is still asking to be interviewed by you. He thinks we could do a great interview, and tell them hopefully you think we could do a great interview, the two of us, and with the audience, and let's do it. Birdie, you got nothing to lose, dude. And if there's certain areas you don't want to talk about, Bertie, we don't have to go there. Okay. But let's hopefully tell a lot of powerful truth of what we believe of the Idaho 4 case. And these guys are all cool, but they were scared of you. Why? You would make a great guest and make them more dollars. Interesting comment. Again, I read that earlier. Thank you, everyone, so much. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time sharing with me on this live. And when this live gets recorded and shared out, I hope you watch it. I appreciate each and every one of you that watched this video. I appreciate each and every one of you that choose to share it. Those of you that subscribe as well, hit the bell icon, the thumbs up. I really appreciate it. Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you for caring about justice and our human rights and protecting our human rights, folks, and protecting our families, our loved ones. We want to protect our precious children, our babies, and live a great life. Right, folks? Let's do it. And I can guarantee you just about, folks, those 4 students, the great news is Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Xander Canuto, Ethan Chapman, I believe they're living their great life. They're not underground. They weren't stabbed. They weren't mutilated. They weren't cremated. That's all horseshit. It was all theater, folks. They are alive out of the country, and they're in real infrastructure in place by the United States, and they are protected by the federal marshals, the feds, the intelligence agencies. And as long as they have sort of a low profile life, they can have a chance and will live a productive life, folks. That's a fact. They have that opportunity if they are alive, if my theory is correct, which I think it is. So this is great news, folks. My theory is all great news, isn't it, folks? It's not sad, you know. And again, my friends, there was no open public casket ceremony. We'll talk about that more in future videos again. If there was a quadruple homicide, folks, come on. Certainly, almost certainly, you're going to have a closed casket, open public casket ceremony. Ethan's family was the only one that had apparently a casket ceremony, but it wasn't open to the public. And like Ellie brought up a good point, I think, and somebody else did too, I believe, Ethan Chapman had a whole bunch of friends, folks. Why wouldn't the family naturally have respect for a lot of his friends at a funeral, open public casket funeral service? If the family could, I think they would. In my opinion, I think. And then the 3 girls were supposed to believe were cremated because they were mutilated so bad the families couldn't have an open public casket ceremony. Do you really believe that, my friends? I'll just ask you, do you really believe that? I think I know the answer from a lot of you intelligent people in the audience. I think I know you know the answer. And let's talk about it. I want to collaborate with other creators and talk about some of these issues at least, if they're willing to do it. Thank you, everyone. I love you. Take care. Appreciate it. Till next time, ESTEY'S Crime Maze signing out. Signing off. Oh, and by the way, feel free next time. Tell me what country you're from, folks. Okay? And again, I hope you share this video. Let's get it out. Let's get me to 1,000 subs or more. The algorithms take off apparently after 1,000 subs. DA always reminds me the first 1,000 subscribers are always the most difficult. Again, I don't do a lot of videos. I don't do a lot of lives. I want to start doing more with your help and motivation, folks. Hopefully I'll be able to do more videos, especially if I can get editing help. I got a friend, thankfully, that did me a thumbnail. Hopefully, you guys, most of you like the thumbnail. So that's why hopefully I'll be asking more for support in the future in terms of some money. If you guys and gals are willing to do that, I'd be very thankful, and I will use it, put it to good use. And it'll enable me, for example, to pay for an editor, you know, and maybe eventually better audio. I would love to be in a studio and talk with other creators. You know, I don't want to just go solo all the time. I enjoyed the few interviews that I have had. I enjoy it, you know, and I'm thankful to get my message across and have people that show integrity and honesty that want to give me a chance and interview me on the Idaho 4. You know, we could talk about other cases too if they want, but so I appreciate Tommy Jude, who died, as I said earlier. Thank you, Tommy Jude, wherever you are in heaven, hopefully. Thank you for giving me the chance and interviewing me and talking with one another. Thank you, Devil's Advocates, Lee, DA over there on your amazing platform. Thank you for having me as a guest, even though I'm very disappointed right now that seemingly right now you don't want me back on your show, at least for the time being. I'm not sure why. I think I know why, but let's talk about it, DA. A lot of the audience, I think, seem to appreciate me being on the show. I certainly enjoy also talking with your other guests and bouncing ideas off one another and listening to them. I appreciate your co-producer, Robin, even though she's ignoring me now on Messenger. She doesn't want to message me back anymore. Strange behavior, but it is what it is. But I like these people, folks, and I have respect overall for them, even though DA and I can agree to disagree on aspects of the 804, and that's okay. But I got questions for DA. Some questions I'm not even going to ask in front of his audience about DA. We'll keep that between DA and I. So anyway, thanks everyone. I don't want to ramble here. Got to go. Thanks for paying attention. Thanks for listening, folks. Again, have an amazing, beautiful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Did I say enough? Did I talk too fast at times? I probably did. And now my intercostal is firing up, starting to fire up with some pain, partly because I've been talking nonstop with all of you, but also reading your comments. And at times I've tried to slow my pace down. But in an interview, folks, I can guarantee you, I will not talk as fast. I'll take pauses. I'll listen to what, whoever's interviewing me, I'll listen to what they have to say. I'll try to answer their questions the best I can. I'll listen to their statements. Hopefully they'll listen to me. Hopefully you, the audience, many of you will appreciate me being interviewed by other creators. But are other creators, are they willing to interview ESTEY'S Crime Maze? That's the question. I'll be fair. I'll be respectful overall. But I just hope that they're not worried about their narrative being destroyed, because that's not necessarily my prerogative. I want you guys to support certain channels out there for sure, and certain creators. I just want to have the opportunity to get out my theory, listen to what they have to say, and our audience, and let's do a rather professional interview from time to time. Are you creators on the 804? Are you willing to interview ESTEY'S Crime Maze, Jason? Let's do it. I put it out there. Thanks, everyone. See you. Bye-bye.